What's up, guys? It's Nick from Nick's Dividends. Today we are going to talk about some of the most popular tech stocks that pay dividends and do the math on the number of shares or amount of money required to earn $1,000 per year or per month for each position. But before we get further into this video, please like and subscribe. The numbers in this video are as of February 26th. Let's begin with Apple. Apple is one of the most popular tech companies in the world. They design and sell a wide array of computing products, but are perhaps most well known for the iPhone, which revolutionized the cell phone market at the time. Over time, they have added to that line with devices like the iPad, iWatch, and AirPods. They have also transitioned to designing the processor for all of their devices, which no longer have them relying on Intel chips for the desktop and laptop lines. They are currently the most valuable company in the world with a market cap of $2.3 billion. If your goal for owning Apple is for the dividends, you are in the wrong spot, as they only pay dividends because the shareholders held a vote that forced them to do so. Their yield is only about 0.6%, but they have an amazing payout ratio of 16%, with a nice track record of increasing their dividend for the last 9 years. For Apple to pay you $1,000 per year in dividends, you would need to own about 1,087 shares, which would cost you about $160,000. For Apple to pay $1,000 per month in dividends, you would need to own over 13,000 shares, which would cost you about $1.9 million. Microsoft is perhaps the tech company that has made the most impact on the market. They have a wide array of products, and it is almost impossible to go through your day without using at least one of them. Microsoft 365 and Teams contain all of their Office products. Windows is the operating system they produce, which is used on over 74% of laptops and desktops in the world. They make the Surface laptops and have one of the most widely used console platforms in the world with the Xbox. This doesn't even include their cloud platform known as Azure. Microsoft has a slightly better yield than Apple of about 1.1%, with a payout ratio of 29% and an amazing record of increasing dividends with 18 consecutive years of dividend growth. They are well on their way to becoming a dividend aristocrat. For Microsoft to pay you $1,000 per year in dividends, you would need to own about 370 shares, which would cost you about $92,000. For Microsoft to pay $1,000 per month in dividends, you would need to own just over 4,400 shares, which would cost you about $1.1 million. If you would like higher yielding stocks than Microsoft or Apple, these next four companies have much more attractive dividend yields. Qualcomm is next up on the list. It creates semiconductors, software, and services related to wireless technology. It owns patents critical to all of the recent cell phone standards such as 5G and 4G. Over the years, Qualcomm has expanded into selling semiconductor products in a predominantly fabless manufacturing model. It also developed semiconductor component or software for vehicles, watches, laptops, Wi-Fi, smartphone, and other devices. Qualcomm has a nice yield of 2.4% with a nice low payout ratio of 25%. Like Microsoft, they are well on their way to becoming a dividend aristocrat with 19 years of consecutive dividend growth. For Qualcomm to pay you $1,000 per year in dividends, you would need to own about 333 shares, which would cost you about $41,500. For Qualcomm to pay $1,000 per month, you would need to own over 4,000 shares, which would cost you about $497,000. Let's move on to Broadcom. Broadcom is an American designer, developer, manufacturer, and global supplier of a wide range of semiconductor and infrastructure-related software products. Broadcom's product offerings serve the data center, networking, software, broadband, wireless, storage, and industrial markets. Broadcom pays an annual dividend of $18.40 per share, but this makes sense when you see their share price is well north of $500 and they maintain a 3% dividend yield. Their payout ratio is worse than most of the others on this list at 45%, but that is still nothing to be worried about. For Broadcom to pay you $1,000 per year in dividends, you would need to own about 55 shares, which would cost you about $31,000. To make $1,000 per month in dividends, you would need to own 652 shares, which would cost you about $377,000. Taiwan Semiconductor, or TSMC, is a semiconductor manufacturing and design company. It is the world's most valuable semiconductor company and the world's largest dedicated independent semiconductor foundry. Most of the leading fabless semiconductor companies such as AMD, Apple, ARM, Broadcom, Qualcomm, and Nvidia are customers of TSMC. They have had a fairly consistent dividend over the last 3 years, with a quarterly dividend paying around 45 cents per share, but has no consecutive years of dividend growth. They have a yield of about 2.1% with a payout ratio of 5.45%, which means this dividend has a lot of room to grow. This may be a risky stock to own, though, with the relations between China and Taiwan being how they are. For Taiwan Semiconductor to pay you $1,000 per year in dividends, you would need to own about 565 shares, which would cost about $50,000. For them to pay about $1,000 per month in dividends, you would need to own 6,780 shares, which would cost you just under $600,000. Texas Instruments designs and manufactures semiconductors and various integrated circuits, which it sells to electronics designers and manufacturers globally. The company's focus is on developing analog chips and embedded processors, which account for more than 80% of its revenue. Texas Instruments also produces the TI digital light processing technology and education technology products, including calculators, microcontrollers, and multi-core processors. The company holds 45,000 patents worldwide as of 2016. Texas Instruments has a nice yield of about 2.9% and an amazing 5-year growth rate of 16%, but with a payout ratio of 48%, I wouldn't expect that 16% growth rate to continue much longer. They have an excellent track record of growth with 17 years of consecutive dividend growth. For Texas Instruments to pay you $1,000 per year in dividends, you would need to own about 202 shares, which would cost you about $34,000. For them to pay you $1,000 per month, you would need to own about 2,420 shares, which would cost you just under $410,000.